Every business has an ambition. PayPal Open is the platform designed to help you grow into yours. With business loans so you can expand and access to hundreds of millions of PayPal customers worldwide. And your customers can pay all the ways they want with PayPal, Venmo, Pay Later, and all major cards, so you can focus on scaling up. When it's time to get growing, there's one platform for all business. PayPal Open. Grow today at paypalopen.com. Loans subject to approval in available locations.
Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Fadi Malouf, and he is a serial buyer, a strategic buyer in the merger and acquisition space. In our space, he does the smaller to medium-sized businesses too, and then he advises in the larger scale. Looking forward to this conversation today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate you having me here. I'm looking forward to sharing some of the ways I've exited and provide as much great content as I possibly can for your viewers.
So I was looking through your LinkedIn profile and stuff. I see you have a background in like healthcare and it looks like some tech stuff. What got you into the merger and acquisition space? Kind of give us, we always start with the origin story so people can connect with you. Kind of what got you in the buying and selling space?
It's a good question. I want to say there's been several percepting events that got me to that. And unfortunately, pain is a really great reminder. So my first company, Body by Fadi, I started it without an exit in mind. It was created out of survival. I started doing personal training at the age of 17 when I lost my father. My middle brother, 10 years older than me, he said, if you're not 17, you're 27, you need to take care of yourself. And basically I was doing personal training with him and two other jobs and putting myself through school. But I did that for about 4.5 years, and then went off on my own and started my own, incorporating my own company. I think it was 1997. Dad died in 93. And so I built a brand for 25 something years, but I struggled with scaling because I was the expert matter. And I got out of the industry because I was introduced by a real great operator that was in the software industry, brought me in on sales and marketing. He says, focus on sales and marketing. He ran operation, and we had a technical person. We launched the company, and in 5 years, we sold it. I'm just giving you the short version of exit. I'll elaborate a little bit more. So the pain of me trying to sell my company, I had, basically walked away with it and lost its value. It's still up online, but I have 160 something pages. It ranks pretty well on Google. I have a brand. I used to have people that would try to steal the name. I don't have that issue anymore, but so I think that's how I started to learn how to get into exiting. And the second part, when I retired, the first time, I was advising companies, and that was something I had to tell people. You've got to have an exit plan, even if you don't want to exit. Start with end in mind, like Stephen Covey said in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And why? Because it makes you focus on systems and processes. And you want a cash flowing machine. You want a company that prints money, makes you money when you're not sleeping. Think about creating an ATM. So I didn't have that in mind. And I think I had, because of the type of clients that I was working with and helping them grow and get them to invest in putting systems in place and hiring the right people, training them, or hiring people that you don't need to train, it's like I had to, like, you have to, as a business owner, as a founder, you need to find a way to fire yourself in that role within a certain period of time, just depending on where you're at in your business. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely, and I'm a big fan of that. Also a fan of Steve Covey. I've actually had the benefit of getting to meet with him once. Went to one of his seminars, and then I went afterwards. I went and sat outside on a bench on the back, and while he was waiting for his limo, he came and sat with me, and we chatted for about 10 minutes. So it was right here in San Jose. It was really cool. He autographed a book for me, and by that point, he was old enough that I thought he was gonna die on the stage. Man, he was gasping for air. He had somebody helping him up there, and yeah.
Wow.
So. But yeah, it was, in the 90s, probably before 2000. I was working for a company called Xilinx, and they said you can choose any training you want to. You had like a $3,000 or $5,000 a year training budget, and he was only doing these small events where you'd only bring in 20 or 30 people, so it was fairly expensive. And I chose that one and got to meet him. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But highlight of my business training life there. Yeah, I got many seminars, but I've never really got to meet like any of the like the higher end authors like that. I've met some on the show here, but as far as like hanging out on a park bench. So you went from you're a health coach, you got pulled into the software world, the tech world, and then I was looking through your stuff. It looked like you got back and forth into the health in some later years too, right?
Yeah, I I did personal training, and
Mm-hmm.
then I focused, in order to get the results for my clients, I really had to focus on nutrition, and I
Mm-hmm.
weighed a lot on nutrition. So in order for my clients to work with me, they had to get their nutrition right. So, uh,
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
so nutrition was a big key. And then working with somebody with a nutrition is not just a 1 hour in the gym, it's more their lifestyle. So naturally transitioned into life coaching. And then from life coaching, and after I've done really well with business, I started consulting. So the skill set that I had to learn to transfer was transferring knowledge, basically, and being able to implement it. I suffer with learning disabilities, and I'm a visual and audio learner. And so reading and comprehension was always kind of difficult for me. And I had to be really immersed in whatever I was doing to retain information. And things had to come out of me naturally. So any times I do an interview, I don't do a whole lot of preparation. It's either I'm living it or I'm not. So
It's interesting.
go ahead.
We're very similar. I'm slightly dyslexic, especially numbers. There's a name for numeric dyslexia, but so I definitely impose numbers in some letters. So I've always had dyslexia issues, and I'm extremely ADHD.
Yeah.
So
Shiny object
so
syndrome.
yeah, I listen to audiobooks at 1.25 or 1.5 just
Yeah.
because I just give me the damn information, right? So.
Yeah.
And then, I have to really focus to do that or have something else entertaining me. Like, I listen to audiobooks when I'm driving. So, yeah, I get it. I've had the same issue all my life. It's funny, is a lot of great CEOs and a lot of high-end, high-producing people have those same learning disabilities. Either dyslexia, severe ADHD, which lends to creativity, and you end up being more intelligent because you you fought all your life to gain the intelligence. Whereas somebody just learns easy, they just learn what they had to learn to get by.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I used to own a online store.
hmm
We had over 160 brands and worked with about 5 manufacturers. We had about over 3,500 products basically online. We sold online. Um, you had to do a lot of volume, and I just didn't really have the appetite or the skill set to do the business. I ended up selling what I had and just kind of walked away from that. But I think personally, for me, I have to be really sold on something to be able to naturally suggest it for others. I never really taken sales courses, and I
right,
was always a believer, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you care about the person that you're talking to, the company, and you're very knowledgeable in that space because you've studied it and implemented it yourself, and have got some arrows in your back, so to speak. You've got some, you've made some mistakes. Um, there's a huge testament to being able to teach somebody else from your mistakes and your wins, and not just somebody that just has only success in certain areas. The do's and the don'ts are just as important. I've gone through phases in my leadership where I maybe focus just on the do's, trying to be more positive, and there's a whole school of thought of like, here's what you need to be focusing on, and that's great, but you should still have a really good sense of what not to do, because it can catch you, blindside you.
like and sometimes the don't do today, you do this today, but don't do this today, and sometimes the don't do list is longer than the to do.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So what we're talking about is organizing time, energy, focus,
hmm
and in doing corporate wellness, doing over 40,000 hours of coaching and consulting, I got obsessed about creating templates that worked for me, and then I would just pass it off and provide it to other people in workbooks and so forth like this. Actually, you reminded me of it, so I pulled it up.
Oh yeah.
And this template that I created, it's crazy. It started as a 1-pager, and I think it turned into a 7-pager at some point. And I think I ended up spending all day filling it out. I'm like, this is great, but it was just too much. So I just kind of broke it down and used it whenever I needed in different areas until that habit was developed, or that question was popping out subconsciously without having to prompt it. But you made me think of it, and it's so for you viewers that really want to maximize your time and energy and your on your focus. I've got on my website fadimalouf.com, under resources is a free PDF you can download and print and use, or if you use like a Remarkable like I do, or
Mhm.
Boxly, you can use that to handwriting and script it. I know a lot of people just do things digitally. There's just something about writing for me that helps script your mind and helps recall information a bit better. So you reminded me of that, and now I'm almost I can't help but right now want to look at some of these questions. You said you asked a question that I would ask every day at the end of the day: what's missing? And I struggle with that question because it felt like it said that it was kind of alluding to something that's missing. So
Mhm.
I would ask the same question in maybe different ways. What can
Mhm.
I improve? What worked really well, but I can tweak and make it even better.
Mhm.
So missing was something I struggled with. I don't know why, because it's probably because I grew up with always what's wrong, what's missing.
Right.
Or it's not enough, it's not ideal. And I think it was started to happen in the stages of delegation with me, when I had to learn how to hire people. When you're a founder, a business owner, and having a perfectionist mindset like I did, I try to get everything to 100%. I can't remember who told me, where I read it. I'm sure you've heard this phrase. It doesn't need to, when you're an owner, you get it up to about 80% and then just pass it off to somebody that's
Yeah.
much better than you to take it from there and grow it. But you just need to have enough of an understanding. But then as a founder, as an owner, you can't be a jack of all trades. You don't have the time and energy to try to execute on all this. So I've struggled a lot with delegating, and so getting to an 80% was really good, and even less sometimes. Right off the bat, hiring somebody to do what needs to be done. And this is what, you asked me a question earlier, and this is for viewers. This is really important because I think our viewers most of them are buyers and they're investing in businesses. There's just two types of businesses that are typically invested in or bought: is your turnaround company or your company that's already healthy and profitable. I've been in turnarounds. I'm glad that I did it, but I'd rather buy a healthy business that's already profitable. Okay. Especially under a $5 million valuation. There's just a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's not enough capital and resources to get the job done fast enough. And especially in today's market with technology and AI and innovation, speed is what kills business or makes it. So that's why I'm reluctant to look at a turnaround business with very little resources, unless you have a very clear understanding of it. You've got the resources, and I'm not saying just resources about money, but you have the team to just jump in and do what needs to be done to make that business profitable, turn around and scale it. So that's just some of the things that I'm reminding. I think there's just maybe some tidbits, takeaways there. If you are looking to buy a business, I'm curious to hear from your audience. What would you say your audience mostly are they buying into turnaround businesses or already cash flowing businesses?
Most of them are either newer operators or first time operators, and if they listen to me any bit at all, they have no business buying a turnaround. A turnaround is a very skilled set to have. I've only met probably 3 or 4 people in my life that are really good at it. I've met some people who got lucky and did it, but I've only met 3 or 4 people in my life. I can think of Rob and a couple other guys that they do it. They can do it. Even those guys right now, 2 of the 3 I can think of, they don't do them right now. Like they've done a bunch in the past, and they're like, it's just too much work. It reminds me of my real estate investment firm. So I had a real estate investment firm before I kind of semi-retired and got into mergers and acquisitions. And we specialized in the most complex real estate deals whatsoever. And it wasn't until to the day I was about to sell it, one of my friends who's a life coach and Robin Mendana's trained, he said, you realize that you choose, you're so into solving problem stuff, you choose the most difficult business patterns you can. And in the same time frame it would take for me to negotiate buying a single house and having a team of 4 or 5 people negotiating, because I was doing bank-owned foreclosures and short sale negotiations and those type of things. It would take us 6 months, 18 months, sometimes 24 months to get one deal through the pipeline. So we always had dozens and dozens of deals in the works because of it, right? The guys that are flipping houses and wholesaling houses are doing 3 a week. Because they're choosing the easier deals, right? So the same thing goes for this. If you're picking a turnaround, you're picking one of the most complex structures you can, and there is absolutely money to be made in it. But you can't be a jack of all trades. You have to be a turnaround expert. You have to have immense resources. You have to build the network of resources, money resources, technology resources, financial, like wizardry, like your forensic CPAs and stuff like that, because a lot of times these things are buried and hidden. I think it's a dangerous play for newbies. So that's just a personal opinion, but I've seen 3 or 4 people buy a turnaround, even get FDA or get SBA loans on it, and end up having to file bankruptcy and almost lose their own personal house. Yeah. Right. So
I was looking at just recently was looking at to buying an M&A firm, because I've been doing these deals, but I haven't been doing it for the last 3 years. And I needed something that builds my credibility and get some systems in place and network. So I wanted to buy a company that was about nearly 50 years old. It has a reputable name, but the structure of it was an absolute nightmare. Even though there was a business done all across the country, the U.S., there was no streamlined processes. I figured it would cost me about $1.5 million to put all the systems in place, but all the people that were working were basically independent, carrying territories, and it would all take it into from all independent, kind of turn it from a franchise into a corporate. And there was just so many risk factors there to really pull it together. It was a profitable company, but the actual founder of the brand was really not making that much money. The guy was senior, was in his 80s, and his agents, I guess, the few agents that he had, there was a few that were making money, and if they went to a corporate setting, they weren't going to make the kind of money, and we were going to basically lose a lot of that revenue. So the restructure, we just thought it was just going to be an uphill battle, and I haven't given my hopes on buying in M&A firms. There's not that many that are on the smaller side. They were asking for, I think, 25 million. Really, after we did our valuation, it was probably worth 6 to 8 million. It was
We've seen that a couple of times recently.
Way overpriced.
No.
And really, at the end of the day, we're buying the brand, and its credibility. So, but nonetheless, if you had something to say, sorry.
I was to say, you brought up a good point, though. Anytime you're looking at something, you think, in order to make this workable, doable, or even sellable in the future, I'm going to have to change a lot. You have to be careful. There are entire sections of libraries written on change resistance and change management, who moved my cheese, all that type of stuff.
Yes.
People are really resistant to change. So
Very
if
much
you
so.
have a firm full of senior executives that have been there for 20, 30 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
15 years, and they've always been able to do whatever the hell they felt like, and you come in with systems and processes, unless they're prior military or something where they can just adopt systems and processes pretty well in a structured environment, they're going to resist. You're not going to be able to implement them. You're going to have to replace those people. It's two different mindsets. There are people who need structure. My wife is a beautiful, wonderful woman. She needs structure at work. She needs to know that this needs to be done at this time, this way. That's just the way she works. She works better under structure. Me, if you gave me the same thing to do every day, my ADHD would just lose my ever-living week. It's one of the reasons, if you look at my if you looked at my history, I bounced from company to company, and people are like, why did you do that? You worked at a year and a half at this company, 2 years of that. I was like, because everything was fixed. I go into companies when, like, they had I ran big data centers and tech operations, and they'd have, huge downtimes and all kinds of problems. We get it all ironed out, and, all my, as soon as I went and stopped wake up in the middle of the night for outage calls, I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Nothing's broken anymore.
You're done. You like to solve the problem and move on.
Yeah. Quit trying to tell people that, though, because what happens when you tell somebody you're a problem solver? If you make if your brand is I'm a problem solver, what do people bring you? Problems, right? And after a while, you get burned out on just dealing with everybody's freaking problems, right? I did the same thing in the real estate world. I solved the problem nobody else could. I wanted to get into real estate. I seen the profit margins. One of my clients had bought me my company. I had a marketing agency. One of my biggest clients was a real estate investment firm. They brought us in-house. We had a falling out because I made him a lot of money, and he wanted to quit paying me like an owner. I own 16.5% of his company. He wanted to start paying me like $2,500 a month as an employee. And I'm like, yeah, that ain't going to work, man. I own 16.5% of your firm. Well, we're going to restructure underneath another LLC. You're not going to own any of it. I was like, okay, I'll just go do this on my own. So we went and done it on our own, but we created, we just what is the problem nobody else can solve? Well, that was the most difficult one to do, right?
Yeah.
So, I do my best not to tell the world I'm a problem solver anymore, because there's the simpler models are more profitable model in most cases.
For sure. Simplicity, definitely, you're going to get a lot more speed in simplicity. Heck, I was, Cody Sanchez is really a big person right now in the space. Alex Hormozy as well, but I think Cody Sanchez likes the old boring businesses, especially with all the baby boomers right now. People owning their business for 20, 25 plus years are getting older. There's great opportunity to innovate, but they're not doing it. Nonetheless, this is a really good space, for our buyers, our audience that are looking to buy something under 5 million. There's tons of resources online to where to find the business, get a sense of the valuation, maybe potentially strike up some deals. But I typically get the deals that I buy or buy from my clients are usually through my network. Because they know I'm a buyer, and I also lend money, just like you in real estate. I do bridge loans.
Right.
I have a private capital. I've got 3 entities. I have FM Enterprises, FM Capital, and FM Advisory. So we've got about 60 advisors. We're all independent. We work together, and then of course the fund. We're in the process of raising about 100 million right now for a fund.
That's cool.
That's the first fund that I've ever raised, and that's just due to the pain in the ass of working with clients. And I brought 25 to 65 million dollar capital deals, debt, equity, or stocks, mazings, to clients, and they've burned the deal, screwed the deal, screwed the pooch, so to speak. And I'm like, you know what? I want to structure this a little different. So some of the clients that come to us, we can become partners, and we can just provide the capital directly as opposed to raising the capital for them.
Why do you think they screwed the deal up? Is it because they couldn't raise the capital fast enough? Did they not build rapport?
Really good question, Ron. And here's the thing. And I used to, when I started owning and become partners of different companies, somebody told me you need to be an owner. And I was really pushing for ownership. And believe it or not, ownership comes with a lot of risk as well. So I don't focus as much on ownership, but now I focus on more control, because I know what I'm able to do for produce an outcome for the company. At the end of the day, as long as I'm, compensated for, the growth and, putting the deals together and making the company grow, I don't care to be an owner, because if you're going to be owner, you're going to take majority of the risk. Or if it goes sideways, you're left on the hook. So this particular person didn't have the credibility, and so we said, hey, we're not going to give you the capital directly. It's going to go through it's going to go through our funds. We're going to build an S&P and escrow it and just set it all up. And by the way, I have a team that does a lot of this administrative, logistical kind of stuff, and attorneys that I pay about 15, 20 grand to set up a deal, typically a minimum, to deal with these stuff. I really try to focus just on getting the right people in the right meetings, so to speak.
Right.
So I definitely lean. So anyways, the buyer technically would not take a backseat on the ownership at 30%. We said, this is just like a private equity. This is what they do. Until the company is running in the first 12 months, we're going to own 70%. After it's up and running, we got some traction. Then you can be the 70%. Heck, in fact, we can just do a debt deal at that point and give you even more control. And we don't have to be any equity partners at all potentially there. So a lot of buyers think that when they do a deal, they're stuck with it. You can always renegotiate and set up different things depending on what's happening with the business, what type of partners, what type of resources are coming in. There's a lot of different things that you could do. This is what I love about financing. You could get quite creative with doing what you need to do. Anyways, so I don't know if that answers your question or not. So the owner would not take a back seat. He didn't have the credit. He didn't have the credibility to take the $65 million on this property. This was a $14 billion business opportunity that he had been sitting 2 or 3 years trying to get the money, and I bought him $65 million with amazing terms, and he didn't jump on it. So I'm curious, actually, I'm wondering what happened. I'm probably going to circle back around to see if he's actually moved forward on that project. I bet you he has not. He had too much ego. He wanted to control, and he had never raised that kind of capital. and he just wouldn't take a back seat on the ownership. He's definitely a great operational person. We felt like we wouldn't have, I wouldn't have bought the capital. I didn't feel like he could do the job, but he needed to just, make the pie before trying to, start eating the pie before, before anybody else, or get to dictate where the pie is. You're not the money person. So whoever brings the money is going to control the pie.
Yeah.
So anyways,
So many people let their own ego get in the way. We were looking at a concrete plant early on when I got into this space, and I had 3 conversations. 2 of them went exactly the way you were talking about. I was looking for operators. What we were going to do is make people put skin in the game. So if I hired a CEO that wasn't going to be me, they needed to bring $250K to the table. With that evaluation was going to give them about 10% ownership. But the way it's structured is after 3 years, they had the opportunity to buy us out, right? At the valuation at 3 years. So after we helped them grow, they'd have to buy it out current view. If they thought they could continue to grow it, they could buy us out. And the first 2 guys is like, why would I grow something for you for 2 years? Because, well, first of all, you've been searching for a deal for 2 years. You don't have one, right? You just told me you've been on the search for 2 years. You don't have one. I'm putting something in front of you that works. It's profitable. It was a turnaround, but had a lot of low hanging fruit, right? They were doing, 18 to 25 at the top year. They were doing $30 million in revenue. And then they were trying to tell the IRS, they were in trouble with the IRS because they've been telling the IRS they were making $30,000 in profit because they wrote everything off. And they had 56 cars in their books. They had 18 semis. They had just stuff that was just sitting around in their yard that wasn't being used.
that's the thing. Buyers also, they want somebody to raise the money for them. And they don't realize how much work that is. And even if your company qualifies, which most companies, 99% don't qualify, I've seen great opportunities get passed. Even though they're profitable, they just get passed over. There's better deals.
Some things are not bankable, right? Just because you have a profitable, high revenue company that's got good margins doesn't mean it's bankable in the bankable sense. Banks look for hard assets. They look for things that if you screw this up, they can still recover some or all of their money. And if you're in, I think a lot of tech companies, a lot of SaaS companies are hard to be bankable because there's no hard assets. If they mess it up, they lose all their customers. There's nothing to sell, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of people raising money, hoping just for these type of investors that are, venture capital, which are moonshot deals. Like they're
Right.
very speculative, and investors that have tons of cash that are going to invest in 10, 15, 20, I don't know, 100 companies. They know they're going to only have one, breadwinner out of 20 companies that they might invest in. They'll throw in 100,000 into 10 different companies or 20 different companies, right? So they're playing the numbers game at the end of the day as investors. That's not my top of. I'm not sitting on billions. I'm not speculating. If you're not have done any investments in the market, and you're a business owner, you're a founder, you're a buyer, I highly recommend that you do some trading. If it's just paper trading, do options. The one thing that people really miss is they're focused a lot on the price. And if you're an amazing operator and you got this great vision, you're looking at supply and demand when it comes to money. Somebody's going to provide you this capital because of your potential. Okay. That's what you want to focus on, not the price, but the potential. So I'm going to give you, $5 million here in the next, few years, but you're going to produce, $10, $15 million a battery. Okay. There's 3 types of people. People that need to make money, people that have money, they got to make the money work. And there's both. I'm both. Like I still like to make my own money, but I got to also make my money work. So, and there's just people that just got so much money, they don't even know what to do with it.
I'm not there yet.
They're just squandering it. But nonetheless, there's a lot of people focus on the money, but they don't focus on the time, the decay, the missed opportunity. So if you got an opportunity and you have the potential of it, you've got to think of you got to put a deadline on when to make that opportunity, turn the opportunity to reality. Jeff Bezos, what does he own percentage of his business? Do you know? Do you
I
remember?
don't remember now. I think it's like down to 16%. It's lower,
And I
but
think it's even less than that since
yeah,
his personal stuff is going on. So 16%, it's like what you're saying. You want 100% of nothing, or 1% of 100 million or a billion. My one of my biggest exits in 2012 with a software software tech company. We got bought out, and they got bought out again. I wish that I still had 1%, because the company who eventually now owns us, it's Under Armour. If I still had 1%, I'd probably have my own island right now.
I double checked. It's eight. He owns 8.4 to 10%. That's what they're
Yeah,
estimating
it
right
was
now.
like
So
half of that. And
yeah,
it was
yeah.
16%. I think maybe his
It
ex-wife took.
probably, yeah. I say he got divorced. Now he's at 8. That makes sense.
So yeah,
That,
so architecting these deals, these just opportunities, really has to do with bringing the right people to the table, and just put your ego to the side, as you said, Ron, and make the deal happen. It's more important that you're making deals happen than, instead of
yeah.
trying to be the biggest winner. You'll be the
A lot
biggest
of
winner
people.
when everybody wins.
A lot of people don't understand there's just so many ways these deals are done, right? The model you're talking about reminds me very much of the sponsored model under the venture capital, where you go find the deal, they'll fund 80, 90, 100% of the deal, but you're only going to end up with 5 or 10% ownership, with the ability to do earnout and earn more time, kind of a reverse earnout where you're earning more the longer you stay. So you might, if you succeed, hit your goals and everything else, at the end of the game, you might own 25% of the company. But they don't. When these sponsored deals that the VCs, where they're paying out, they're putting 100% of the funding in it, and betting on you as being the horse to run the race. I mean, the jockey to run the horse. They're only like giving these guys 10, 12, 15% of equity,
Yeah,
right? That's the normal starting point. And because they're putting forth millions. So people think, like, I like what you said earlier, you don't need to be the owner, you need to be in control. I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember the guy's name that had the TV show where he'd go out and help restaurant owners and bar owners, and he would invest in them, but he would take control, like he'd take a minority stake but majority control, right?
exactly. And who I want in control is the one who can drive the results.
Right.
If you showed me that you could drive the results, that's great. That's one of the first things that I do when I buy in a company. The first thing I think about is, okay, who's gonna be running this? Who's gonna be driving it? Who's my driver? You have an expensive Formula One race car. That driver doesn't know anything, or may not know anything, about how to build the race car, but he or she will drive the hell out of that car and run some amazing times, right? So I want that person driving it. I want that person in control. He does. They don't have to own the company. They don't have to own the car to make a boatload of money and retire and build wealth, right? So, yeah. So control's the name of the game, and I have enough problems. So a great operator is supposed to be the one who's bringing the solutions to the problems, and that's what a business is. It's
Right.
solving problems and move on to the next problem, and innovating and growing, right?
That's one of the keys in this space, is making sure the right butts are in the right seats. Almost every company I've ever evaluated and looked at, when you look around, you can clearly tell the right butts are not in the right seats all the time. And often it's not about laying people off or firing people because they're not right for the company. It's they're not right for the position they're currently in. If you really sit down and ask somebody, what do you love doing? What are you great at? They probably belong somewhere else in the company doing something else, because that's what they want to focus on. They just happen to feel the need, took the job that they could get when they got there, and they're just in the wrong position to excel. Right? I always tease around and say, there's no such thing as a bad employee. Some people are just better employed somewhere else, right? That said, sometimes it's somewhere else in your company. How do you figure out? Like, I love what you said about having the right operator and having people, in those right seats. How do you go about choosing who goes where, and building that executive team out, and making sure everybody, like, you got the right team to
Yeah.
grow a company?
So if I'm in the trenches and already operating a similar business model or business,
Hmm.
I'm doing a lot of the recruiting and hiring. Most likely, I'm just going to hire a recruiting firm, because this
Yeah.
is what they do day in and day out. They know how to recruit. Of course, I'm going to have a say so in the hire, and a lot of times the operator is going to be the buyer as well. So so sometimes I don't have to worry about that. I could be the buyer, and initially it would start out as like, hey, I'm looking to buy this business. I'm going to be owning and operating. So I'll turn into the buyer, their operator. I'll provide some capital, provide some resources, and then just like a private equity firm, they buy me out. I may stay in on the board. So that's the way to do it. So I also get a lot of people that ask me, hey, where do I find businesses? Like I mentioned, online and through my network. At least online, you can do some type of comparison. And many times they're buying a business because they think this is something they enjoy doing. They think they're going to make a lot of money doing, but they don't have the experience. So if they've had leadership experience, corporate America, or their own business, I'll say, you know what, you can figure this out. But if they hadn't had leadership, they're not entrepreneurs, I will most likely influence them on not buying a business.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a plane. You can buy a plane, but good luck flying it. So you need a little. Actually, that's how before I started buying businesses, I got out of the personal training business, having a gym and so forth, and I had to go into. I didn't have the confidence to really scale and build a business. I got called in with a friend of mine, an attorney and a doctor, and we were having breakfast, and the doctor saying, "Man, I lost my case manager. She was his operator for like 10 years." I was like, and so I said, "Hey, so I, just as a friend, start giving him some advice on what he could do." The next thing you know, he looks at me, he's like, "Hey, can you run this place for me for a couple months until I find somebody to run it?" I was like, I say, "I've never done it before. I have no clue about running a medical office, but happy to help any way I can." He said, "Yeah, come on in." So I went in. A month turned into a year, and I literally turned the business around. Reduce costs, improve efficiencies, improve case averages, increase revenue, got a lot more patients in, retained more patients, and I loved it. Why?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't be the doctor anymore. I couldn't be the expert matter anymore. And I was selling the clinic, and I was selling the experience. I was focused really on being an assistant patient. So I saw every patient as my 85-year-old mother, and sat next to them when they came into the clinic, just really listen to them and see what their needs were, right? And so that's why I was going to ask you a question earlier about this. I struggled with being a virtual operator. For me, I'm very tactile, very visual, high level being kinesthetic. And so I'm saying this actually, takeaway for our audience here is you really got to know yourself and how to position yourself. You can be amazing as an operator, but I've learned in the medical clinic, I thrive. So after that clinic, I ran another four clinics, and then I was consulting over 60 clinics nationwide. I did nationwide. I was working with a company doing it, and they wouldn't spend the money for me to travel to go to be in the clinic. I said, "Listen, if you want really great results, let me be in that office doing intensive." And we did start doing that, but of course they had to pay for that extra 20 or 30 grand for me to come in and do that intensive in there. But long story short, it kind of fizzled out when I was doing the virtual advisory. This is before COVID, so people were used to in person. I still got great results, produced about on average of 38% growth within the first year for all the clinics that worked with us, especially the ones that actually, how when a client hires you, whether they do the work or they don't do the work, you can only do so much of it. You can only help so much of the ones that are actually executing on what your suggestion.
And I can see if you're there every day, though, you really get to see it happen and make sure things are happening. I told you I own a marketing firm. My real estate client bought us. We were a coaching firm. Basically, I was one of Jay Conrad Levinson's coaches, the guerrilla marketing, low cost, high impact marketing strategies under Jay. And so we would bring people in. I'd give them a $700, $800 short couple day seminar and give them the basics of it, and then I'd bring them in for individual coaching, and we give them a plan, and it'd be like step 1, step 2, step 3, and they wouldn't do the damn steps. They called me up and go, "This isn't working." Like, well, did you do step 1, right? And business coaching became life coaching, right? Like, you start like trying to figure out what's in their way, or they called me up and go, "I need to cut my marketing budgets." Why? I got to pay for attorney. Why? Well, I'm getting divorced. Why? Well, because I'm having an affair with the secretary. It's like, okay, you don't need a business coach. You need a life coach. You need to keep keep your priorities straightened out there. You might need to go down to the river, find Jesus or something. I don't know. I'm not that religious, but you got to find something here. That said, it all works together. So finding that right person there, I can see the power of what you're talking about.
Some of the best CEOs are really great operators, but they're the worst entrepreneurs. Okay, because you have, like you mentioned. Did you say your wife earlier?
My wife, yeah.
She's really good at structure. You just give her the steps, and they're very good. She's very good at complying. Right. I spent tons of time and energy in personal development. I'm like you. I will build the system, build the process, but don't ask me to continuously execute on it, to do compliance on it. So a lot of CEOs are very good at compliance and communication, and they're just gonna make sure that things are being done as the policy has been written out to do that. So I think if you're gonna invest in hiring the right operator, that is, if you use the DISC assessment, D for driver, I for influencer, S for systematic, and C for compliance, you really got to know your team based on that. Somebody that's very driven, a D and I and a C, they don't have to be necessarily systematic because the policy and the system's already been laid out. And as a good owner, that's your job, is put the systems in place. And many times I've hired outside consultants to put the systems in place because they can look at things objectively. And because, like you said, change is really hard for people who are already doing that. And many times I will start with my existing employees that are working there and say, hey, you have an opportunity to build this policy and create this process. And so they have immediate ownership of the policy. The chances of them executing is exceptionally higher. Even when I hire a consultant, I tell the consultant, I say, yeah, I think I want you to create these systems and policies, but you have to have buy-in from everybody. Let them come up, give you the solutions, and you all as a collective figure out what the policy is going to be, and I'll review it and I'll sign off on it, and then we'll check on metrics on a quarterly, biannually, and annually to see how things are going, and don't touch that policy or process for a period of time. So give it some time for it to effectively work. And now, so as I talk about this is all starting to come back up. Companies under 10 or 15 employees, and if they're not working remotely, you see these people on a regular basis, and there's level of communication is pretty high, because you can't bump into somebody and not talk about Mrs. Jones' account or whatever it may be. So it's all done through osmosis, right? But if you're working remotely and you got a team of more than 15 people, you better have flow charts, you better have policies, org charts, and that nature. You have people in HR that are exceptional at doing that. That's not my specialty, but if you give me metrics, I can help fine-tune it and fix the gaps.
So
Exactly.
It's brilliant to do that, to have somebody else go through all that true legwork that should be done and hire in the perfect person in any role. It's time consuming. So if you're not the systems and process guy that can spend the time to go through 100 resumes and talk to 15, 20 people on the phone, do Zoom calls with the last 5, you probably find somebody else to do that for you.
Yeah. Time consumption. It's like we've talked about, the speed of growing a business. This is why I don't like startups. I wish that I know what I know now back in the day. Uh, Maybe the market was different, but it's not that much off different. Private equity has been doing this for a long time. They got the gist of it. If your company, is worth at least 5 million, really actually now 10 million valuation plus, because they know that all the bugs have been worked out of it, right? Ron, this is a great parallel into business, man.
Yeah.
I've done projects for the money, and I was
Mhm.
miserable. I made tons of money, but I was just miserable lifestyle wise, right?
Yeah.
I lived 40 years in Georgia. And so a couple of years ago, I said, I downsized, got rid of everything.
Mhm.
And I bet I know where I'm going to move. So I'm just going to travel, see where I'm going to go. I started in Morocco, went to Portugal, Spain, France, Albania, Italy, Greece, Montenegro, Macedonia. I mean, I did probably 20 plus countries just last year. And
Wow.
I just realized, and I came back, I'm just like, man, this was fun. I was like, I
Mhm.
should do this in the US. At least
Yeah.
I can speak the language. I tried I got so tongue tied with different, being in a different country almost every month or two. So, anyways, I'm like, I should do this in Georgia. So I've done south. I went all the way down to the Keys and back up on the bike, and I did north. Now I was going to go to the west, and I've been all doing this on a motorbike. So that's where I'm at this year. It's going to do that. So, I think everything happens for a reason. And back to the lesson, the parallel here in the business that you are, especially if you're going to be doing an operator, just make sure that you love what you're doing, because there's going to be so many days that shit is just going to hit the ceiling and it's not going to work. I guarantee you it's not going to work. But that's why you're there, is to make it. You got to figure it out, resolve it, and make it work. So at the end of the day, I think if you love what you're doing and then it just doesn't feel like work, that old saying, and just even though that you love what you're doing, it's still good to take some breaks, because when you're taking the breaks, all the solutions kind of naturally pop up. I love that you're living your life on your own terms. Since I had this motorcycle accident about 3 weeks ago, and me doing a lot of option trading, I started about 3 or 4 months ago.
Mhm.
I'm kind of beating myself up because I wish that I had done it earlier.
Right.
One thing, when you're trading in the market, it's just you in the market. You don't have to worry about any operator, any employees doing what they're supposed to be doing and not doing it. They, influencing and leading. You really got to be patient, and it's your responsibility to be able to communicate. True communication is the response that you receive. You've got to give your team what they need, directions, and all the resources to do their job as best as they can. A lot of times when they're failing, it's because I failed them. So that's the first thing that I look at, is like, if they failed, I'm going to always look at myself first. What did I do wrong? What could I do better to support them? Obviously, if there's something, a pattern there with them, and then I bring in other people, because I tend to be too patient, because my background has been with coaching and training and developing, and I have a high value to progression. But when you're fighting loss opportunity and time decay, and you have investors involved, it makes, it's like, what is it, swim or sink situation. So you got to be pretty shrewd and get the right people on the bus to continue to do the job. Anyways, so moral of the story: just love what you're doing. It makes a difference. And even the companies that I try to support, I like, I do a lot of things for veterans.
Mhm.
I haven't served, but for people who really put their life out there to serve and to give us the freedom that we have, I think that's the ultimate.
Yep.
Freedom is huge. And
Yep.
right now we're in a state. It was like, in America, do we really feel free?
Yeah, it's definitely in a state of uncertainty, I think. Right, there's a lot of uncertainty. It's been that way for a while. With the last president, with this president, everybody, the division of everybody and everything else just causes this whole chaotic uncertainty,
Yeah.
right? And that's not good for any market. That's not good for anything. But I'll tell you, if you can buy something now and build it, or build something now and it survives now, then this is this is a down cycle, definitely maybe a down cycle, but definitely an uncertainty area. If you do well now, then when the market hits its peak, you're going to be doing really well. Like, it's the people who bought companies or did things and started companies during the Great Depression and when other economic uncertainties and economic downturns, and they survived. Those became behemoths. Those became giants, right? That's when the masters are made.
Yeah,
so
for sure. I have 2 questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead, man.
So I know a lot of our listeners here are buyers.
Mm-hmm.
How many would you say there are buyer operators or just buyers, and they're hiring or partnering for in regard to operators? What percentage would you say there are buyers that are bringing in operators?
I would say I'll say it's 50-50 that the people that say they're going to bring in operators. And I always encourage them, look, don't buy anything where you can't be the operator for 6 months to 18 months. A great executive search takes 6 to 18 months to find that general manager, that CEO. If you can't run it during that time frame, and be willing to go there. If you don't like the humidity in Atlanta, Georgia, don't buy a damn company in Atlanta, Georgia, because I promise you, your butt's going to be in that seat.
Yeah.
When you took an SBA loan that your house is on the line, the CEO leaves, and you got to take 6 months to 18 months to find the perfect replacement. Somebody's flying to Atlanta and running this thing, and hopefully it's you. Because it's your house, and you just personally guarantee. If you use an SBA loans and traditional financing, you've just personally guaranteed every asset you have against this acquisition, right? And that's the discouragement. I tell people all the time. Number one, determine what kind of investor you really are, right? If you're truly the passive, you want to be as passive. I don't believe in passive investments. I think that I don't believe there's. I think that's a fairy tale among all fairy tales. But if you're trying to be as passive as possible, at least understand you need a BS meter in the industry, and you need to be willing to roll up your sleeves and handle it until somebody else can. Otherwise, you're in trouble, right? You may be lucky and they never need you, but if they do and you can't step up to the plate, you're putting a lot of risk. So
yeah, I agree with you. Usually within that, generating the first $3 million for the company, just in revenue, guarantee you 100%. There's not enough people and systems in place there that are really established. So if you're under 3 million in revenue, you're most likely the bottleneck, and you're pulled apart in many different directions. The other second question I had for you, success rate. Where do you see the success rate being higher? The ones that are buying and hiring and partnering with operator, or the buyer operator?
People with great operational skills and they're buying it to run themselves, I see a lot of them succeeding well, as long as they don't try to do a turnaround. So I've only met one who failed and he bought a turnaround. And I've met quite a few. I've interviewed over 300 people. I've met a lot of their clients and stuff. Maybe they didn't come on camera because they can't. It's real hard to get a recent acquisition, a recent exit to come on here because of all the non-disclosures and stuff they have to sign, right? They're just worried they're gonna, and we've done it. We've actually had somebody on here who bought a company, and the next thing I know, he's calling me up going, "Hey, could you take this segment out to the second?" My employees heard it and they're mad, and his people are revolting, right? Because they heard about the deal on the show. So it is risky to come on here and talk about a recent acquisition, especially if you got creative in the financing. He did a sell leaseback, bought the company and the real estate, and the real estate was worth enough that it paid for the company almost in full. Matter of fact, he ended up with $800,000 in cash for growth capital. So his employees are like, "You ripped off the previous owner." It's like, no, right? We negotiated the deal. He's happy. He's retired. Yeah. I found a buyer and was willing to do something. The owner people don't understand on that situation. The owner could have never sold that real estate for what he could sell it for because the owner couldn't guarantee a 30-year lease or a 15-year lease to a private equity firm. Exactly. So he gets a premium on the real estate because he's guaranteeing a long-term lease that the other guy just couldn't guarantee. But anyway, I think the operator has a better chance. I think somebody who has skills running something in that industry has a better chance, unless you're truly an investor. Say you've got $50 to $100 million in your back. You're doing this because, or access to it, a family office or something's backing you. If you're doing this because you're destructive when you're retired, right? You got to have something gainfully to do. Then, bring an operator in, because if you can afford to eat the cost of an executive, what do you call a fractional CEO or fractional CFO while you're doing that executive search, even though the company can't afford it, you can, then you can buy almost anything, right? So I can buy a company, the CEO leaves, I hire a fractional CFO from one of the big top firms, they run it until, and they perform the search. There are firms that'll do it, but it's $100,000, $200,000 a year for me to have you come in and be my CEO for 6 months while the same company is back in the background trying to get your replacement. Those aren't cheap engagements. If I can eat that because it's a long-term, investment for my family office, then yeah, be a standoff investor. But most of our guys listening, they're not there. They're fresh out of a business, fresh out of maybe a recent exit. They've got a couple, 3, 4, 5 million, 8 million, $10 million. They're playing the VC route a little bit. They're funding some small companies, and they're looking for something to buy and grow of their own again.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to do a little exercise for the listeners, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And help me go through this. I'm a proponent of really getting to know businesses, especially if you're a first-time buyer. A lot of people, just shopping for a house. It's a big commitment, and there's a lot of things to look at, especially if you want to build a house too. But we're going to buy a house that's already built, okay? So think about it. I'm going to just kind of put a target. Let's say we're going to buy $1 million business, okay? The company is doing at least 30% in profit. So that's $300,000, okay? We're going to, let's just say we have $100,000 in cash, and we may do seller finance 10% of it, maybe, or more if we can, and we can get the bank to cover 60 to 80%. But let's just say the only thing that's really coming out of our pocket as a buyer is about $100,000. Okay. So, and in the first year, you want to get obviously your $100,000 back. So we said the company is profiting 300, and your cash on cash investment is 100. So you should get back 200,000. You should be able to put in your pocket $200,000 if the company's still running the same way it's running.
Well, it's still got the debt coverage ratio, right? You got to cover the debt too now. So out of that 200,000, a lot of people miss that when we're talking about, the companies may pay me 300,000. No, the company paid the last guy 300,000, but he didn't have a $1 million loan on the company. You're going to have $1 million loan on the company, so it's going to pay 300,000 minus the interest and principal payment on a 300,000 or $3 million loan or whatever the loan is.
Right? Exactly. So we got a loan of at least 900,000, right? So, and then if you are going to hire an operator, let's just say minimum of 6 figures. So you're going to pay them 100,000. You're out of pocket 1,000. But do you think that we can get our cash on cash back within the first 12 months?
It'd be lean because you do 100,000 to the employee. Just do simple math on a 900,000 loan, usually about 10% a month. So you're like 9,000 a month, right? Which is $1,890, $108,000 a year. So you're $208,000 in the hole before you can get it. So you only got $92,000. This is public math, but you got about $92,000 coming to you in the first year if you don't have any other surprise expenses or decline in income.
Correct. Well, we're hoping for 10, 15, 20% growth in the first.
Right. Then you're going to be able to get it.
Right. So assuming everything goes well, you got your 20% growth or more potentially. But you basically bought a company within a year that's worth $1 million. Okay. And you have an operator. So I'm just trying to paint an ideal picture. And then so people look at least 30 companies, look at their financials, and be looking at buying something that you really like, starting at $1 million. Just, a lot of people will put a down payment for a house, 100,000, before they would do it to buy a business, right? And the house is not going to cash flow for you. It's not going to print money for you. It's a liability. Or buying a business that is cash flowing, it's a vehicle that's producing revenue. So I'm saying this I'm simplifying to encourage buyers have a target, an idea of a cash flowing business that's sort of at least doing 30%. And believe me, I've seen 40, 50, 60, and 70% profit margins because of really great operators that have put some systems in place and they're running it themselves. In fact, this is how a lot of times the guys and girls that have built $1 million business revenue and they're profiting 60%, 70%, they usually get stuck. That's where they don't know how to grow the business from there. So a lot of times I'll sell finance, can let them continue to be operators, partner with them, bring in the cash on cash, the cash down payment, and get an SBA loan potentially, or a private capital, whatever it may be, and provide some guidance, leadership for that operator to grow the business. Preferably, I like them younger, so because they're usually more open, they're more coachable, and we can grow the business. I like those type of deals because you already have the operator that's built it, but they're just not able to take it to the next level, right?
Right.
So I'm bringing in the capital and I'm bringing the strategy, and of course, whatever resources need to be in my network to help that grow the business. And obviously, I'm buying into something that I know: technology, healthcare, wellness. This is the kind of space that I know. So I encourage our audience to buy into something that that the operator might be already there. A really good one is a little different. Companies may have been around for 20, 30 years, and it's a family business. The father or the mother, they're retiring, they're too old, but they may have a son or daughter that want to stay in the business, right? So there's your operator right there. You come in bringing the capital and the innovation to help them grow and scale and get them out of the stagnant, business that they're in. Look at the model, see how you can scale the model. So
I think the key in that is, are they coachable, right? It's really difficult. I've walked away from 3 opportunities like that. I do those opportunities inside of things like newsletters and stuff because they're insanely, profit margins are huge, 70-80% profit margins in newsletters and some online education type of stuff. So I'm interested in newsletters and things where because I can be anywhere in the world and run it too. So that said, I've walked away 2 or 3 different times where I had a really great deal. It's going to be very profitable, but the current operator does want to stay, but he's not very coachable, right? And if I'm going to put money in and take control, I don't touch anything I don't control, but I don't need 51%, but I'm going to have contractual control over everything. That's because it's money, that I can use for my family in other ways. That said,
well, you're taking the risk. You're bearing the capital. That's
right.
the risk, right?
That, and the reason you're even wanting me to come in is I'm older, I'm grayer, and I've got some experience to get you to where you're trying to get to, right? And got the education, got the experience, and if you can't listen, and you can't implement, then what are we doing here? So that's the real trick with that, is you got to find people that are truly coachable. If you're going to leave the operator in place, you're looking for somebody who's hungry to learn, hungry to grow, and you got to build really deep trust and rapport with that person where they really, they trust you. They look at you as a coach. They look at you as an executive coach and mentor.
Yep.
So
I love it. Speaking of mentor, I believe quite a bit of your listeners are advisors themselves. And I see a lot of advisors that a lot in the market that have not been owners themselves. So my suggestion is lead by example, have a buyer criteria, and be on the hunt for yourself to buy a business. And even if you bought something, if you don't have the capital, buy it through sweat equity. Okay.
Most of the guys I've interviewed have actually sold a company at some point. A lot of them become advisors and brokers because, like you, the first time they try to sell one, it didn't work, or they didn't get what they wanted, right? You try to sell the health company, realize you didn't build it, or your bodies by Fadi. You couldn't sell it because you didn't do it right. So now you got this lesson learned, and as you don't let other people cross that line. Most of the guys that I have that are been on this show, they've either done an exit or they tried to and quit and realized, like, I'm not going to let anybody else. They let that scar be a lesson to other people, and they're like, I'm never letting anybody fall for that again. Or they sold something, It's way too cheap or way too, cumbersome. They had huge earnouts and stuff like that, and they or the broker was horrible or whatever happened. It induced a scar that they're gonna, keep other people from having to deal with. So,
For sure.
yeah,
So the name of the show is something exit. How to exit, right?
how to exit, right?
So if you're going to hire an advisor, make sure your advisor has had multiple exits.
Absolutely. That's one thing, right? And preferably in your industry. A lot of things people don't realize, this industry, the mergers and acquisition space is extremely industry specific, meaning that if you're selling an online tech company with a SaaS or an online newsletter, the evaluation models are totally different than your brick and mortar mom and pop pest control company, right? Total different evaluation model. We don't even use multiples of EBITDA and stuff like that when looking at newsletters and stuff like that. We use trailing 12 months revenue, and we pay a multiple on trailing 12 months revenue, 36 to 42 times trailing 12 month revenue, right? That said, that has nothing to do, because they're so high profit margin and other stuff, none of the other stuff comes into play. You can never do, those type of math and that type of stuff on the small mom and pop brick and mortar. So I think industry matters. So, and I tell the same thing when you're going out and doing an SBA loan, you're trying to go to a lender. If you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, like we were before I moved out here into California, and you go and say, hey, I'm going to buy a tech company, and your local credit union says, yeah, we do SBA loans. I promise you they're not going to help you buy a tech company. They've never seen one, right? If you look at all the SBA loans they've ever done, it's for restaurants, bars, and medical type of things, medical clinics and, chiropractics and stuff like that, because that's what the industry's in that location. So if you want, like industry matters in both the acquisition and the selling, and both the lending and the, an investor in a family office who's never seen a tech company is going to be a little skittish about helping you buy one. Where, an investor in a family office who, have 15 tech companies in their portfolio, they know if you fail, they got somebody they can lean on to go help straighten you out. Mm-hmm. So we are running out of time, man. How do people reach out with you? How do they work with you? What is that criteria to do something with you, man?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Just send me a message. I'm also have FadiMalouf.com. You can schedule a discovery, a strategy session. I am known for, I didn't come up with this. Some of my clients, just like how the name of my first company, Body by Fadi, my clients come up with my branding. A lot of time, it's not you say who you are, it's what your customers or clients say who you are. So that I've been recently labeled the 100x, even 1000x guy conversation. So I like to have conversations that I can at least 100x or 1000x your whether it be your time or your money or the combination of both. So that's what I've been able to historically prove. If somebody invested $100,000 with me, I've been able to 100x that for them. So FadiMalouf.com for a 100x conversation.
Awesome. And I'll make sure that LinkedIn is in the bio or the show there, the show notes, so people have it. Thank you for being here today. Hang out for a few minutes after we turn off the mic, and we'll call that a show.
Great. Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate you.
Every business has an ambition. PayPal Open is the platform designed to help you grow into yours. With business loans so you can expand, and access to hundreds of millions of PayPal customers worldwide. And your customers can pay all the ways they want, with PayPal, Venmo, Pay Later, and all major cards, so you can focus on scaling up. When it's time to get growing, there's one platform for all business. PayPal Open. Grow today at paypalopen.com. Loans subject to approval in available locations.